You're doing everything right. You're working hard, you're visualizing, you're affirming, but the money still hasn't arrived. And here's the brutal truth nobody tells you. The reason you aren't rich yet is because you are waiting for money to arrive. That act of waiting is the very thing keeping you poor. Neville Goddard discovered something that sounds impossible but changes everything. Your subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between a memory from 10 years ago and a future memory you create right now. This is not metaphor. This is not poetry. This is a glitch in the fabric of reality that you can exploit tonight. In the next 12 minutes, you're going to learn the reverse memory technique, a method so precise that Neville called it the shortest path between desire and fulfillment. This isn't about manifesting someday. This is about collapsing time itself. Let's start with why waiting destroys wealth. When you say, "I will be rich," you are grammatically placing wealth in the future, and the future never comes. Tomorrow is always tomorrow. Neville Goddard taught that the subconscious mind operates only in the present tense. It doesn't understand later. It only knows now. So when you hold the feeling of waiting, hoping, wishing, you are actually instructing your subconscious to keep creating more waiting, more hoping, more wishing. You are programming lack on repeat. This is the first glitch. You think faith means believing something good will happen. But Neville redefined faith entirely. He said faith is not hope. Faith is not trust in a future event. Faith, in Neville's teaching, is loyalty to the unseen reality. It is the act of assuming the wish already fulfilled and remaining loyal to that assumption even when the mirror of the world shows you the opposite. He wrote, "Assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled and observe the route that your attention follows." Notice he didn't say hope for or work toward. He said assume. That word is a command. It's an immediate shift in identity. Now, here's the second glitch, and this one is profound. Your subconscious cannot distinguish between a real memory and an imagined memory if both carry the same sensory and emotional weight. Neuroscience now confirms this. Studies on false memory implantation show that when people vividly imagine an event with enough detail and feeling, their brain stores it as if it actually happened. The neural pathways are identical. Neville knew this decades before brain imaging existed. He called imagination God himself. He said, "Imagination is the only redemptive power in the universe. If you can imagine it with the feeling of reality, your subconscious accepts it as fact. And your subconscious controls 95% of your behavior, your perception, your opportunities. So if you want wealth, you don't imagine getting the money. You don't visualize the moment it arrives. That still places it in the future. Instead, you create a memory of having already received it. You remember the moment you signed the contract. You remember the relief you felt when the deposit hit your account. You remember telling your closest friend, "It finally happened." This is the reverse memory technique. You are not manifesting forward. You are remembering backward from a future that already exists in consciousness. Neville Goddard told the story of a woman who came to him desperate for financial relief. She was drowning in debt. Creditors were calling. She couldn't see a way out. Neville didn't give her a vision board. He didn't tell her to work harder or think positive. He gave her one simple instruction. Tonight, before you fall asleep, construct a scene that would imply your debts are completely paid. Don't imagine paying them. Imagine the moment after they've been paid. Feel the relief. Then fall asleep in that feeling. The woman followed his instruction. She imagined herself looking at a bank statement with a zero balance on all her debts. She felt the lightness in her chest, the freedom. the quiet joy. She did this every night for 2 weeks. Then something unexpected happened. A distant relative she hadn't spoken to in years contacted her. This relative had recently sold property and felt compelled to help her. Within 1 month, every single debt was cleared. Not through her effort, not through a raise, through a bridge of incidents her conscious mind could never have orchestrated. Neville called this the law of assumption. He said, "You do not attract what you want. You attract what you assume you are." The woman didn't assume she was someone trying to get out of debt. She assumed she was someone whose debts were already resolved. That assumption became her state. And your state is your fate. This brings us to one of Neville's most powerful techniques, the I remember when method. This is reverse memory in its purest form. You speak to yourself in past tense from the future. I remember when I used to worry about money. I remember when I couldn't afford that vacation. I remember when I thought wealth was for other people. You say this not with longing, but with relief, with the tone of someone who has already crossed over. Neville taught that when you can genuinely feel nostalgia for your current struggle, you have successfully shifted states. You are no longer the person who is poor. You are the person who was poor but is now abundant. That distinction is everything. William Blake, the mystic poet Neville revered, understood this principle through vision. Blake wrote, "We are led to believe a lie when we see with, not through, the eye." Most people see with the eye. They see their bank account and believe the number defines them. But Neville and Blake saw through the eye. They saw the invisible state behind the visible fact. Blake called this double vision. You see the current reality, but you simultaneously see the greater reality of imagination. And you give your loyalty to imagination. Here's the raw mechanism. Your subconscious mind has a fatal flaw. It cannot reject anything you persistently assume with feeling. It has no filter for truth versus fiction. It only responds to repetition and emotion. This is why trauma creates such deep patterns. A single terrifying event, felt intensely, becomes a core belief that shapes years of behavior. But the reverse is also true. A single imagined event, felt intensely and repeated, becomes a core belief that reshapes your entire reality. Neville said, "An assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact." Read that again. Though false. He's not asking you to believe it's true. He's asking you to persist in the assumption. The subconscious doesn't care about your doubt. It only cares about the dominant feeling you feed it most consistently. This is where the reverse memory technique becomes surgical. You don't need to change your entire day. You don't need to fake positivity. You only need to dedicate 3 minutes before sleep to constructing one vivid memory of fulfillment. Why before sleep? Because the transition from waking to sleeping is when the conscious mind releases control and the subconscious becomes most impressionable. Neville called this the state akin to sleep. In this drowsy, hypnagogic state, you bypass the logical gatekeeper. You plant the seed directly into fertile soil. Here's your exact protocol. Tonight, as you lie in bed, close your eyes and construct a short scene that implies your desire is already fulfilled. If you want $10,000, don't imagine receiving it. Imagine the moment after. See yourself opening your banking app. See the number. Feel your breath catch. Feel the smile. Hear yourself whisper, "It's here." Now loop that scene. Play it again and again. Add sensory details. The coolness of the phone screen, the light from the lamp, the texture of the blanket. Make it real. Then, in that feeling, let yourself drift into sleep. Do not analyze. Do not question. Do not check your account the next morning, expecting instant manifestation. That breaks the spell. Neville taught the Sabbath Principle. After you plant the seed, you rest. You do not dig it up to check if it's growing. You trust the invisible process. He said, "The Sabbath is the psychological state of rest in the conviction that the thing is done. When you can feel done, you are done." Now let's connect this to ancient scripture, because Neville's entire teaching rests on one verse, Romans 4, verse 17. God calls things that are not as though they were. This is not religious poetry. This is instruction. God, which Neville identified as your own wonderful human imagination, does not wait for conditions to change. God calls, God speaks, God declares the end from the beginning. And what is the human capacity to imagine but the ability to call forth realities that do not yet exist in the physical? Neville studied Kabbalah under his teacher Abdullah, a black Jewish mystic in New York. Abdullah taught him that the Bible is not history, it is psychology. Every character is a state of consciousness. Jesus is not just a historical savior. Jesus, the Christ, is the awakened imagination within you, the one who said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." Not, "I will be." I am. Present tense, eternal now. When you declare, "I am wealthy," you are speaking as Christ. You are calling things that are not as though they were. This is where many stumble. They think this is arrogance. But Neville would say it's the opposite. Denying your imagination is denying the divine spark within you. Staying small, staying poor, staying stuck is the real blasphemy. Honoring Jesus means honoring the power he demonstrated. The power to speak to storms, to multiply resources, to resurrect dead situations through pure assumption. He never doubted. He assumed the miracle. Then he gave thanks before it appeared. Joseph Murphy, another giant in metaphysical teaching, explained this through the concept of mental equivalence. See, he said your subconscious will only manifest what you have a mental equivalent for. If you have no memory, no feeling, no inner image of being wealthy, your subconscious has nothing to work with. It's like asking a builder to construct a house with no blueprint. The reverse memory technique creates the blueprint. It builds the mental equivalent by implanting a false but emotionally real memory of success. Modern neuroscience backs this completely. Your reticular activating system, the part of your brain that filters reality, only shows you what matches your dominant beliefs. If you believe you're broke, you will literally not see opportunities for wealth, even when they're right in front of you. But when you shift your inner state through reverse memory, your RAS recalibrates. Suddenly, you notice the job posting, the conversation, the idea. These were always there, but you weren't tuned to the frequency. Here's the modern financial application. Most people operate from a poverty consciousness even when they want wealth. They check their account with anxiety. They make decisions from fear. They save obsessively because they believe resources are scarce. Neville would say this is worshiping the false god of conditions. The true practice is to make financial decisions from your future self. Ask, what would I do if I already had the money? How would I carry myself? What energy would I bring to conversations? Then do that now. This is not pretending. This is assuming. And assumption, Neville taught, is the only creative power. Let's bring this home. The reverse memory technique works because it operates on a simple but profound principle. Consciousness is the only reality. The external world is always a reflection, never the cause. When you change the inner image, the outer world must conform. Not because of magic, because of law. Neville said, "The world is yourself pushed out. Every person, every circumstance, Every dollar in your account is your consciousness made visible. So here's your metaphysical resolution. You are not waiting for wealth to find you. You are not hoping circumstances will shift. You are choosing, tonight, to remember wealth as an already accomplished fact. You are planting a memory in your subconscious that says, I am the person who signed that contract. I am the person who received that payment. I am the person who finally broke through. And you are going to water that memory with feeling every single night until it hardens into fact. This is not a one-time visualization. This is a discipline. Neville practiced this for 30 years. He called it living in the end. You must become so familiar with the feeling of your wish fulfilled that it becomes more real than your current circumstances. When you can walk past your empty mailbox and still feel rich, you have mastered the art. When you can see the overdue bill and still feel abundant, you have shifted states. That is the Sabbath. That is rest. That is faith. Now here's what I want you to understand. You are not alone in this practice. You are joining a lineage of mystics, seekers, and ordinary people who discovered that imagination is the bridge between desire and reality. Neville Goddard spent his life proving this law works for anyone willing to apply it. He tested it. He taught it. He lived it. And now you have the same power. If this teaching has stirred something inside you, if you recognize the truth in these words, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. The Goddard Code exists to keep this wisdom alive, to translate these ancient metaphysical principles into tools you can use today for wealth, love, health, and freedom. Every video is designed to deepen your understanding and sharpen your practice. You are not just a viewer. You are part of a community of conscious creators who refuse to accept limitation as final. Let me leave you with Neville's own words, the ones that changed everything for so many. Assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled and observe the route that your attention follows. You don't need to know how. You don't need to force. You only need to assume. The bridge of incidents will appear. The doors will open. The money will come. Not because you deserve it, not because you worked for it, but because you claimed it in consciousness first. Go create your future memory tonight. Remember wealth now, and watch your world rearrange itself to match.